Welcome to Vendetta Sports Media. It is May the 8th. Daily show today. Got myself, James Herrick, Anthony Miranda. How we doing?
Doing good, doing good. Fresh off those UFC fights. Finally got a pay-per-view. Wasn't the best. I would say I wasn't like crazy about it, the lineup, but had a decent time with the Thursday. Yeah, a few good fights on there.
Yeah, and that's our big topic for today is UFC 288, and then whatever we got left over, we may get into some NBA stuff depending on time. But with UFC 288, we'll start right at the main event: Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo. This was a very important fight, right, in terms of legacy. Henry Cejudo obviously trying to get that second belt or get regain the bantamweight belt, excuse me. Aljamain Sterling though, great performance by him. Ended up defending the belt. So give me your thoughts on Aljamain's performance and the fight as a whole.
Um, I actually really liked that fight. I thought it was one that I would definitely want to rewatch too,
Hmm.
especially because I had some stuff going on. So like that third round, I kind of missed, and it seems like that was maybe an important round too. Um, but for the most part, I would have been fine if it went either way. I thought I did have Aljo winning, so I was glad that happened. But yeah, I just thought I thought it was an interesting fight. One like they kept saying kind of like Henry Cejudo a wrestler versus Aljamain more of a grappler, and how that would like play out. Um, I kind of wish I thought Aljo could have done a little bit better on the feet, especially with his length and stuff. But he was working the leg kicks good and stuff, so he was doing damage with that. But I don't know. I think he did what he needed to do to win. He stayed out of danger for the most part. I can't remember if he was necessarily ever too close to getting finished at all or put in such a bad position while on the ground. But
Yeah.
overall, yeah, that was definitely one. It was definitely more technical, even though there was some like it was action throughout, but it wasn't like
Mhm.
a Justin Gaethje,
Yeah.
Michael Chandler type, or Dustin Poirier type fight or something.
Hmm.
But so it was more technical. It was one I definitely want to rewatch.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I want to rewatch it too. But I was really surprised with Aljamain's performance. I thought he fought really well. One of the things that I like talked about in the preview, I was surprised. I thought he would gas. I thought if he wasn't able to really rack up a lot of control time on the ground, I thought he would gas, and he did get some control time, but for the most part, a lot of that was heavy grappling scrambles and a lot of striking exchanges and Aljo throws a lot when he's on the feet. A lot of leg kicks, a lot of kicks to the body, a lot of straight shots, and it's like he's not like the most accurate guy or the most effective guy on the feet. He works at a really high rate. And I was surprised he was able to do that for 5 rounds. I was really, really surprised he was able to maintain that pace, and that was impressive to me. That was, I thought, one of the bigger weaknesses in his game because when you look at both the Yan fights, he gassed a little bit. In the first one, he
Hmm.
gassed really hard. And the second one, he had a little bit more control in the early rounds, but still gassed a little bit closer to the end. So I was surprised he didn't gas at all, which that probably the fact that he didn't gas real hard probably won him the fight because it was a close fight, and if he would have gassed at all, he probably would have lost. Um, but I had Henry 3-3-2. I thought Henry won the second, third, and fifth, but I was with you in the fact that I'm not going to complain either way because I think 2 and 3 were both very very close rounds that are very hard to score. So I think
Well,
that's one of the harder fights. Like sitting there watching live trying to score, that was one of the harder fights. So I was like, whoever they give this to, I'm cool with. But I probably would have
mhm.
scored it for Henry live first watch. I may change my mind to rewatching it, but that's what I had off the
See,
official.
that's funny because I had a Henry winning that second too. That third one is the one I seen that was kind of debatable a little bit, or it was up for grabs. Some people had it going either way, and that third one was the one where I watched a good majority of it, but I wasn't sat down like glued eyes to the screen, so I don't feel comfortable like
Yeah.
fully saying.
Hmm.
So, but I did because in my head it was kind of 2-2 going into the fifth. Um, and I didn't feel like that's what I said. I would want to rewatch it because I don't know how comfortable I was saying like Aljo like easily won that round. I think that split on the judges' scorecard where two of them had Aljo on that and one had Cejudo. So
Hmm.
I mean, overall too, I think I'm sure certain people. I got to see Cejudo when I was getting into UFC uh, fight like two or three times, maybe two times. Before he took his big break. So I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot of people, haven't really got to see him, any new
Hmm.
fans. So I thought it was a good showing from him to be like 3 years removed, come in, fight Aljo as good as he did, and maybe even win. So I mean, I don't want him. I know he was kind of afterwards just hinting at maybe retiring or stuff, but I wouldn't mind like, because that's another thing too. Imagine if he had like a couple tune-up fights. I wonder how much better he would be if he still has
Yeah.
it like that.
Yeah, and I think we can get into that next because as far as Aljo goes, it's pretty much set in stone that he's fighting Sean O'Malley. But we can touch on that too here in a second. But I
Hmm.
think for Henry, like what's next for him is it's an interesting question because he's 36 and he's pretty dead set on the fact that like he either wants to be at the top of the sport or he doesn't want to do it, which is respectable. With that said, that was a very close fight, and he can beat Aljamain Sterling even though he didn't on Saturday. It's
Hmm.
not out of the realm of possibility that he can win that fight. And the other thing that he talked about was that he wants to win the belt at 145 and he wants to beat Volk, right? So I'm interested to see what he does next because I think there's two fights right now that make a level of sense both ways. The first is if he heavily wants to beat Volkanovski. If he really wants to do that, I think there's no reason to stay at 135. I think he could hop up to 145 right now and take on Max Holloway because that's a fight where Max Holloway's that guy in the division where nobody is able to beat him outside of the champion. So if Henry beats him, he gets a title fight against Volk. So it's a win-win there, and the UFC kind of has something they can do with Max. That said, I don't know how good of an idea it is for him to go to 145, but if he's heavily interested in it, I think that's probably the path to go with. Otherwise, if he wants to stay at 135, he called out Murad Dvalishvili earlier today. I think
Oh, okay.
maybe just an hour or two ago. I like that fight too, just because that's a little bit of a similar spot where if he's not going to fight for the belt, if Marab's doesn't want to fight Aljo, that makes sense. You can do Henry and Marab. Well, Aljo and Sean fight. So I think that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, I mean, I like both of those, especially because I know Cejudo said like, he wants to fight for the belt,
Hmm.
which I understand because he is so old. And I think he's proven he deserves it,
Yeah.
but you can't like just get a shot again like he kind of just got. You do have to fight someone to prove it. So
Yep.
especially if he goes up to 145, and like you said about Holloway, like 145 is obviously the skill, the talent pool, the skill level there. It's not a bad division, but like the way it just shakes out right now, it's a bad division. Just because, like, if he could literally fight Max Holloway, and if he beats him, yeah, that's his shot. Because, besides that, you're gonna have to go down in the ranking because Volk's already beat some of the guys,
Yep.
or some of the guys just lost to. And then I do kind of like that 135 one though, because I mean he just fought there, so we've seen him.
Hmm.
Uh, you know what he can do. Obviously, almost won that fight. Um, and if it does give Marab something to do, because Marab's not gonna fight Aljo, and then if you beat Marab, I think I wouldn't be mad if you beat Marab if you get a shot again right after,
Yep.
depending on who it is and stuff, or like I don't know. I want to
Yeah.
see Sanhagen do something, but
Yeah. That is kind of the guy who's left out of that whole circle. If they do
mhm.
Cejudo and Marab, because it kind of felt like they were going to do Corey and Marab, so he'd kind of be the guy on the outside. And I'm with you too. I think Corey's up there in terms of talent, but I think he's got a few more flaws in the grappling that kind
Haha.
of makes Marab a bad matchup, makes Cejudo a bad matchup. He's got everyone at the top of that division is a bad matchup. Like Cheeto's a great matchup for him to go out there and strike with for
Uh-huh.
5 rounds, and he looks great. So. But
That's
he
what
is kind of the guy who's left out.
I was just saying. Me being biased though too. That's why I was like that Cejudo taking Marab fight. Maybe Sanhagen just has to sit and fight one other dude. So I was even fine with that. I was like, you got to avoid that or
Yep.
whatever. But
Hmm. And to that point too about him, if he beats, I think it solves a lot of problems too, because if you beat Marab, I think you earn a title shot. And then as far as the title picture goes, you have Aljamain versus Sean. If Aljamain wins that, then I think a rematch would make sense if he beats Marab. He wants to fight on the same card. He wants to be the co-main, which
Okay.
then you can have one of those guys be the replacement too. So that makes sense
Uh-huh.
as well. And if he beats Marab, then you can do the Eljo rematch. Makes sense. Or if Eljo loses, the Sean and Henry fight makes sense too because they've had a bunch of back and forth.
Uh-huh.
Or it's tough to say exactly how that division will go because there's a bunch of different circumstances. And I know Aljamain also wants to move up to 145, but getting a chance to beat Henry Cejudo for a second time, I think is, as far as like building your legacy goes, if you beat Henry Cejudo twice, that's something that is incredibly
Uh-huh.
impressive for your legacy. And then, it even strengthens it makes you look even better if then you go beat Volk afterwards. So I think it makes sense for everybody involved. So I hope that's kind of the direction they go.
Yeah. And I'll say one last thing too, because I always put a lot of respect on Aljo's name
Hmm.
before he was the champion, and I was like wanting him to get a title shot. But I mean, then obviously he started running his mouth a little more. He got the belt, good for him, and being a little more cocky.
Hmm.
But it did suck because just the way he won it, and then so people already didn't like that. They're kind of hating. And then he beats Jan in the rematch, which was a great win at the time. But I will say what Jan's lost is like last four now or something, three. So
Hmm.
that it hasn't aged well, that win. And then that TJ fight, like it's a great name, but that wasn't even a fight because he came in with like one arm. So this was such an important win to give his like title reign more validity and stuff.
Hmm.
So and then like you're saying, like I mean, I think it's already set in stone now, but to truly be up there as one of the best, I do think he needs one more name because I mean, that's three defenses now, right? One, two, three, yeah.
Yeah.
But that TJ one, I don't even know if that's an unfortunate one. Like you can't really brag about that.
Hmm.
And then, and I'd still take the Jan one, but like I said, Jan's lost like his last four or something, three. He's
Yeah.
on a big skid, so.
That
But
could
it,
it could age poorly that those two Jan fights for him if Jan
uh,
can't turn things around. I think he can, but if he doesn't, that's a real possibility that he doesn't. That's an issue in itself for Aljo in terms of legacy and looking back at the
yeah.
wins and stuff. So, and I like that point you made about it adding validity to an extent because
Hmm.
it's like no matter how much you doubt his first three wins, or in his time this far into the sport, um, a win against Henry is like trumps everything. And
Hmm.
his win against Corey Sandhagen has aged very well too, which was
Yes, it
the
has.
number one contender fight. That's almost more impressive than anything that he did with the belt. Like to
Uh-huh.
me, taking out Corey Sandhagen in, I think he did it in like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
That's a win that if that was a title win, that would be looked at so finely. But since it was a
Uh-huh.
number one contender, it just kind of gets swept under the rug. And I think Corey's made improvements too, but for Aljo, that's a great win that is almost never talked about.
Uh-huh.
And then moving on down towards the co-main, this was an interesting fight. There was a lot of interesting things going on here. This we had, both these guys stepping in on short notice. Burns fought last month, and he fought in January. So this was his third time this year. Bilal Muhammad hasn't lost in several years, riding like a 9 or 10 fight unbeaten streak. A lot on the line here. Winner gets a title fight, and the fight didn't really deliver. Wasn't really an entertaining fight. Wasn't really a super technical fight. Gilbert Burns got hurt early in that fight, and that kind of left him with one arm, and it left him kind of as, I don't want to say a punching bag, but there wasn't really much he could do out there other than throw a right hand once every 2.5 minutes, and he was landing them. But we didn't really get that interesting of a fight. I don't think we really learned much about either of these guys, but what are your thoughts on the co-main event?
Uh, well, like, let me start it off by, I'm not the biggest Bilal Muhammad fan.
Neither am I.
I was,
Neither am I.
yeah, I think, I don't know. He's got me a little bit more some of the media. Like he's playing into the heel a little bit. So I
Hmm.
mean, I can appreciate that. and he'll make me laugh sometimes, but I just think he's not the most entertaining fighter to me. And so like there was a joke, I was like, well, it's pretty hard to have like a boring fight with Gilbert. So either Gilbert's gonna make Bilal rise or Bilal's gonna bring him down. But in Bilal's thing, it wasn't fair because yeah, Gilbert couldn't do much. But at the
Hmm.
same time, like this is why he's a boring fight. You couldn't like knock him out or even put him in danger with one. He had one arm for
Hmm.
like for 4 rounds, and you couldn't even like get him in danger once. And I don't know, but I mean, he did what he needed to do. I will say, Bilal, I took a couple good shots though. I will
Yeah,
his chin.
Bilal's got one hell of a chin on him.
Yeah, that
I was looking at I was looking at his record, and his last loss was to Jeff Neal, and I watched that fight, and Jeff Neal did not finish him, and Jeff Neal tees off on him
hmm
for 3 rounds. Bilal Muhammad might have one of the best chins in the UFC because, to your point, he ate some big shots, and he's been smacked around in the past. Ate the head kick
uh,
from Leon, but
yeah.
yeah, he's
And I
got a
was gonna
chin on him.
say, Jeff Neal too's got stone in his hands. The way
Yeah.
he hurts people too. So that was one of the main things that, like you said, we didn't learn much because I mean, I guess they were. Oh my God, they were glazing. They were obsessing over
Yeah, that's crazy. It was crazy.
his kicks or whatever. So like that was we learned that he's got a good kick, but I mean yeah. Besides that, I say his chin stood out.
Hmm.
But I mean, I'll never fault someone. He did what he needed to do, got the win. I think he took a couple shots, but he stayed safe and healthy for the most part.
Yep.
It's him for sure, right after Colby or after Colby and Leon.
Yep. Yeah, and to that point, like his kicks, I thought looked good, but it's also like Gilbert Burns wasn't there at all in that fight. Like, not even just like he wasn't there
Like,
mentally until about
yeah,
the fourth round. I think it was the fourth round. Henry Hoof was in his corner, and he was like, "What is?" I don't remember what round it was. I think he
it was
was
a
going into
third.
one of the rounds. He said like, This is the second round, right?" And then it was not the second round. It was
Uh-uh.
they were going into the fourth.
Yeah, cause
But
yeah.
yeah, I think entering the fourth round, he kind of, his coach was like, "Hey, you can still kick, right? You don't have your left hand, but you can still kick and you can still throw the right. So let's go out there and do those things."
hmm
So it's like in those moments, like I give Bilal a lot more credit for staying more disciplined because Gilbert Burns has a hell of a right hand on him and
Uh-huh.
he counters well. So I don't hate that, but the rounds 2 and 3 where he was just standing in front of him doing nothing, Bilal didn't pick up the pace at all. In those moments where he was out mentally, and like his lack of pressure almost let him get back into the fight, in a way. And I really didn't like the way that Gilbert fought, and it was because of the shoulder, but it was like he didn't do things that I thought he could have done to win the fight. And what I mean by that is like,
Even with the shoulder.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
because like one of the things Bilal did really well was kick from I forgot which stance it was, but he was kicking from one side where they were in opposite stances, and that's when he was blasting with the kick to the body.
Uh-huh.
Landed a lot of great body kicks, but I just wanted Gilbert to kick the leg, right? Kick the lead leg, throw the inside leg kick when he's throwing the body kick. Try and force him to switch stances. He can only throw kicks from one stance. Bilal can.
Uh-huh.
So you kick his lead leg when he's in that stance, make him switch stances. He didn't do that, but I don't want to go too hard on him because he did have one shoulder, and I do really like Gilbert as a fighter, but yeah, I
hmm
don't think Bilal is as good as people make him out to be. I think he has really good cardio, really good pace, a really good chin, in good wrestling, some good striking, and he's improving. But
Well,
I don't think he beats Leon. I think he's got a better chance of beating Colby though.
he's got the like kind of like you said. He has all the intangibles. It's like because you look to you go to football, you'll be look at the height, weight, the speed necessarily, like the footwork. Like Bilal, like you said, he has the cardio. That's awesome. The pace, he can keep it up. Has a chin. They kept talking about his size. He has the size. He has a lot of mass on his legs. So it's like all the intangibles. I just don't love the talent necessary or like the skill. That I don't think that's up there with like you said, like a Leon. But I mean, he could definitely get it done. I think if you're never gonna get tired and you can take shots, there's not a fight you can't like win that down the
That is
line.
true.
But I was gonna see, like you said, that was yeah, it was so crazy. He's like, it's the second, right? The coach was like, you just fought the third. Like, where are you at right now?
Yeah, this get crazy. Like I know you
But
kind of zone out while you're fighting, but that is an
uh-huh,
all-time like that's all-time being in the moment, being like, this is the second round. It's like, no, this is the fourth. No,
uh-huh.
not even
It
close.
it was tough too to just see like a fighter like so kind of like checked out, like still want like being in there ready to grind it out, but like being like just like he was so I could you could tell how frustrated he was. He was like I can't even throw the left, like I can't throw it for
Mhm.
nothing or whatever. I think it,
Yeah.
but um I was gonna say yeah. I think I mean Gilbert will be back. I think that's whatever. I think good win for Bilal. Um, did you want to preview a little bit? So you did say because I would still take Leon, but you think there's a bit better chance against Colby if Colby wins for
Yeah.
Bilal,
So I think this
or
is an
sorry, better
int-
chance
I think
against
this
Colby.
is yes, yes. I think this is an interesting trio where I think Colby's got a better chance of beating Leon, and Leon. So Colby is the best. Okay, all right. This is gonna all right. Colby is the more likely guy to beat Leon, but Bilal would have an easier fight against Colby. So
Uh-huh.
I think it's because like Colby can put on the pressure with the wrestling against Leon, and I don't think Bilal can do that as easily. And we already saw it. Like Leon won the first round of that fight, controlled it. Obviously, there was a lot of fight left, but I
Hmm.
think Leon can win that fight. I think Colby can really pressure Leon with the wrestling and cause some problems. But if you do Bilal and Colby, I think Bilal is so much bigger and he's a good enough wrestler to where Colby's not going to be able to take him down for 5 rounds and wearing him. So it's going to become a striking matchup. And then Bilal is so much taller that he's way more powerful too. So he can probably just strike with him, jabs, straights, mix in some kicks. He probably outstrikes Colby for 5 rounds and defends a takedown. So I think Bilal, if he wants to get the belt, he should probably be rooting for Colby.
Okay, I can see that too because like you're saying, yeah, Bilal's good enough to where he stuffs him. Like he might get hit with one or two, but I mean he stuffs him. He can't. Colby can't just chain takedowns like and then working off his striking and stuff. His striking is not going to be as good, obviously, if he can't work off the takedowns.
Mm-hmm.
And Colby's not known, for having the strongest hands and strikes. And so we saw apparently Bilal's got granite in his chin. So yeah, I think too. So that'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The
yeah, I
build
wouldn't
up for
mind
that
either
fight
of
would
those
be
fights.
messy. The build up
Uh
for that
huh.
one would be messy between Colby and
The,
Bilal.
yeah. Well, that is true actually. Colby might be getting yeah.
Yeah, that
I
would
don't
be
want to
bad.
see, and I'd want to see too below because the thing that like threw me off is I don't. There's certain people, um, certain people that can actually talk trash or they're cocky for reasons, or you can tell when they're about it. And then there's certain people that try to talk trash, but like can't really. Like they're talking trash because they're supposed to or they have to, but that's not them. Like you can tell they've never been someone that's really been like that to move that way, but they try to. And Bilal strikes me as that guy that like. Which good for him. I know you got to get more fans, make funny. That's another way, but it comes off not corny to me, but it comes off a little different. Like you can tell when it's genuine.
I'm with you.
It's
I'm with you. And
uh huh.
the John Jones line where he said it. He said it twice. He said it twice. He said it at the press conference, and he said it after he won. He said the line about if you give me 8 weeks, I can beat John Jones. On 3, I can beat any welterweight alive. I'm like, that's not funny.
That's
That's
like
bad trash talk, and you recycled it twice. It's like, come on,
exactly
man.
because that's like not even trash. That's like WWE trying to be a comic book villain.
It's bad, and like this is a total side note, but I think we might be at an all time low for good trash talkers in the UFC, at an all time low. Like
Yeah.
Connor is so far out of his prime trash talk wise.
Hmm.
Izzy hasn't done good on the mic lately. Done some things, but
Yeah.
he'll give you a real bad one every once in a while. Colby is shooting from the hip, but he's not really hitting on anything. It's like
Uh-huh.
this is probably
It's
the
because
worst era for trash talk.
we need like because when they do it best, I feel like is when they're younger dudes like soaring to the top, and then maybe when they get on top for a little bit,
Hmm.
because like he said, Izzy's gives us good a couple times, but I think he took an L or two that hurt or took an L. And then also, I think he's just been on top for so long, so they get like delusional a little bit, and they can't like do good anymore because they're so the best already, like in their
Yeah.
heads.
Yeah. The one I think John Jones is the lead up for the John Jones fight I think might have been the best from a trash talk perspective. The problem is John Jones can like kind of talk trash, but like he'll never whip it out. Like John Jones
Uh-huh.
will talk trash. Like he had some lines with DC where it's just like him being like, "Hey DC, this is gonna be the worst fight of your life. Everything you've trained for it's a waste." It's like
Yeah.
he'll say some outrageous shit to you, but I
Hmm.
mean, he didn't whip it out for the Gon fight, and I was kind of surprised.
Well, and I like that too because I like there's a difference the like trash talking that's more like fun or blah 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 or a little bit hurtful jabs, but there's also like the trash talking where two people hate each other, and I like that DC. I mean, I don't think it's probably not the healthiest for two people to be like that angry, but I would say I enjoy that because that is like. That's what I'm saying. It's on site, low key, when they're already talking like that, and then at the press conference they got in a fight, or they had to get them in separate
Yeah,
rooms. The clip that
yeah.
always gets me is when Jones is when the mic's cut off or whatever, and Joe's like, "Hey, you hear me?" And he's like, "You are a terrible person."
That is a good one. My favorite. We're quite off topic here, but that's all right. My favorite from that one is it's when DC or John says DC looks like a crackhead with the suit on, and then DC says, "Yeah, but I've never done crack like you have."
Yeah.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite. All right, back to the fights at hand. We got the two big ones out of the way, main and co-main event. Women's strawweight fight delivered. I thought this was a pretty fun fight. Yan Xiaonan versus Jessica Andrade. Title implications too. I'm not sure what they're doing with that 115-pound belt there, and I don't know what Weili's plans are in terms of fighting. But yeah, this was a really great performance by Yan Xiaonan. Landed a real great counter right hand and put Jessica down. So, give me your thoughts. But I really like this fight.
Okay, so I mean, I just had this is unfortunately the one that like I kind of missed. So I'll just
Mhm.
say a little bit of what I knew and what I seen after. Um, I like Jessica Andrade. I'm a big fan of hers, so I always like root for her. But and I didn't really get to see really any of the fight, but I did see um, I was watching the post fight press conference, and I guess said she kept throwing lefts,
Mhm.
and then like you said, she countered with the right. And Dana I know said that Teddy Atlas like called that if you saw that, but.
Mhm.
I would say, how did it look before? Because Jessica Andrade is so hard to finish, and she's such like always like the more menacing fighter when she fights. So I was stunned a little bit when I saw a round one KO,
Yeah, it was
an early
just
one.
yeah. Jessica just came out so quick. It
Hmm.
kind of it kind of looked like the Aaron Blanchfield fight where she pressured heavily with just a lot of heavy shots, heavy hooks. She was pretty much just head hunting with hooks basically, and Jan was hanging around with her in the pocket. There were a couple
Uh-huh.
times. There was one time I like Jan sat down for a leg kick in the pocket while Jessica's throwing hooks. And I'm like, oh geez, don't do that. Don't throw a
Yeah.
leg kick while she's chasing you with hooks. Yeah, but it was an entertaining fight. It was basically just Jessica heavy pressure with the hooks, and Jan was just trying to sit down on counter shots, and until she landed one. So based on that fight, it was either going to be Jessica was either going to land two or three of those hooks and put Jan down, or Jan was going to land one of the counters and win that fight. And it ended up being Jan with the counter that won the fight. So
Hmm.
I guess
Uh,
not too surprising in that regard, but I was surprised at how the pace of that fight was what caught me off guard. I
yeah.
didn't think they were going to come out that heavy.
Well, and it's worked on the past. I know with Jessica, like really getting on, like turning it up. Maybe not at the start, but turning it up. It worked. It's worked for her in the past. But and then
Mhm.
did you want us to talk about Jan, like because I know they're talking about the huge fight for the Chinese market and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Is that the next one, or is there any other person that's?
it's her and Lemos. Lemos got that win over Rodriguez. It was a
Oh,
couple
okay.
months ago now, but after Lemos won, it was like, oh, we got to do Amanda Lemos versus Wei Lee. That's such a violent fight because Lemos, real heavy hands, great
I do like
finisher.
Lemos.
Yeah, people were pumped about that because Wei Li is probably she's might be the most entertaining female fighter of all time, just in terms of how she fights. But her title reign has been like, they need someone, and people were like, well, Lemos can go in there and they can get a good fight out of that. And then it kind of seems like Jan got this finish, and now people are like, oh well, let's do that one. So I think I don't want to say recency bias, but that's kind of the way it
Yeah.
works. Like the person who comes off the more recent performance is usually the one to get the credit. So I
Ex-
think they probably give it to her. And Dana
uh-huh.
said they're talking about doing it back in China because Whaley won the belt in China. So it sounds like they might take it back to China. And if they do that, I think they probably have to do Yan and Whaley.
Okay. Yeah, I think too, because I was just looking, and it looks like, um, I mean, because I think it was only a two-fight win streak now for Jan, because she lost to, I
Yep.
saw Marina Rodriguez, and then I have to go back to who else she lost to,
She
but
lost to Carla. She got ground
Carlos,
and pounded. That
yeah,
that was a bad loss. I
it
think
was.
after the Carla loss, I think she switched gyms and started to look better. I think she went somewhere
Okay,
that could teach her how to defend a takedown, which was a good idea for her. If
yeah.
you're getting taken down by Carla and finished.
I mean, I would say then that, yeah, if you with you bringing that up, I'm still on Lemos then.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if they can do either one, and I'll be pumped. To be honest, like I'm not going to
Uh-huh.
complain either way. They've got two good fights there. Book one of them. I just want to see
Hmm.
Wei Li fight. She hasn't
And that's what
fought
I was just
since
gonna say. Yeah.
She hasn't fought since she was the co-main on 281, which was Izzy and Pereira in the main event, and they already
Uh-huh.
got their rematch done.
Yeah. The first one, huh? Yeah.
And she dominated too. It's not like she went 5 rounds and got beat up. She quick and easy. She was fighting
Yeah.
Carla, got it done.
Got it out of there.
Come on now, let's get back in the octagon here. Um, Got two fights left on the main card here. This was one of the more surprising fights on the card, I'd say. Mazvar Evelev, Diego Lopez. He spells his name with an S. I think it's pronounced Lopez. My bad. But I say Lopes every time I look at it because it's we got the S at the end. Here, I was shocked at how competitive Lopez made this. I wasn't really concerned about him winning this fight in the sense of like he got some deep submissions, but I would never really thought he was going to get it done. Had some
Hmm.
good moments, but man, he made it as competitive as he could for taking it on 5 days' notice against Evelev, who is ranked 10th, and a lot of people think he is championship caliber. So, what were your thoughts here?
So, real quick, let me look at Evolev's last couple fights because that's one that I recognize how good he is, um, but I've never. He's not one of like my dudes yet, or one of the guys I like. Maybe show at them as much respect as I should. But obviously I took him in this fight. I thought he was kind of just good. I heard the Lopez was good, and but it was his debut, so I kind of expected Mozart to like run through him a little
Mhm.
bit, as in, well, this dude is this good, right? They're giving him a late replacement debut, so this is a walk in the park.
Apparently, he picked the fight too. They gave Musvar a list of names, and this was the one he picked.
Really, well, I mean, good way to challenge yourself, I guess. Because I really enjoyed this fight. I thought it
Mhm.
was super. I thought Movsar stock went up. I mean, I like him anymore. I'm glad I got to see him tested a little more. And oh my God, I really enjoyed Lopez. I think like for a debut, I mean, for sure you could notice some flaws and stuff like that. But I mean, what a gamer! Just losing and then just making it interesting in the third. And I thought there was I think there was one time where I was like, but yeah, even then, and then good for Mostar for even dealing with all that and getting through all that adversity at the end. And he's every time I think about like fighting in the UFC or something like that, doing something and like what fighter would I be? I'd have to stretch every day because Mobsar was like put in like certain like submissions and was just chilling. He was
The
like, oh, it hurts a little bit, but
the knee bar at the end was crazy.
and he was just sitting there like I was like, God, how flexible are you?
Yeah, that was and to your like Lopez, like, yeah, there's flaws there. There's definitely flaws, but you gotta come in game to like try and take out Evelev like that. Like at the beginning, he was throwing shots and he was trying to knock him out on the
Mm-hmm.
ground. Every second that was on the ground, he was trying to submit him. It's like that was entertaining. And like I was like, how is this guy not in the UFC already? Like,
Yeah.
like the UFC has keeps pretty good tabs on all these guys. He trains with Aldana and Grasso and a couple other people. So it's like
Okay.
he's probably on the UFC's radar. But geez, we
Uh-huh.
couldn't we couldn't get this guy in the promotion already. There's a long list of guys at 145 that he can beat. Like
Yeah.
especially like maybe he never becomes a ranked fighter, but that Lopez seems like the type of guy that can go, 10 fights in the UFC, win 6 of them, and get an entertaining fight every time.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, um, so I think that's the type of guy we've got here. Um, but yeah, I agree with you. I thought it was a pretty good fight overall.
Um, yeah, so I mean, this is it's one where I'm glad Mobstar won, and he gets to keep moving up, and hopefully he gets his shot at one of the top dudes pretty
Mhm.
soon, and hopefully maybe that got him more fans too. He's fighting on another pay-per-view, so and then but I'm like a fan of Diego of Lopez. I want to watch his next fight. I'm excited to see where they put him too because it shows you he could. I think he can already hang with ranked guys for sure. Um,
Damn. Yeah.
but I was gonna say, oh, well, I was just gonna joke like why he wasn't in the UFC already. It's because Dana wants to funnel all these people through the Contender Series so he can pay them less. He doesn't actually want to find talent right away because then he should have to pay him.
That is facts. He will like he probably would have been on the next. They probably had a list of guys that they were interested in for the next season, the Contender Series,
Hmm.
and it was probably him.
So they could pay
I
him
hate
10 and 10s for 6 fights.
I hate the Contender Series, man. And it's like sometimes it's good. I think we can get entertaining fights out of the Contender Series, but sometimes it's like, okay, we've got a 16-0 Russian who's an amazing grappler against a dude who looks like he's never even tried to defend a takedown.
Uh,
It's like you look at his record, he's got 4 submission losses in the first round. And it's like, all right, well, I see this is just a layup spot for the dude they want in the UFC.
yeah,
It's like when they put 2 dudes in there and they're evenly matched, we get good fights. But some of those fights on Contender Series are mismatches. So it can be like, oh, this guy was on the Contender Series. And it's like,
yeah.
those piss me off. But Evelev, I'm with you on his next step. He said he still wants Bryce Mitchell. That was the original opponent he stepped in to face. Said he wants Bryce Mitchell, so I'm
Such a
cool with that.
test too with another submission like specialist.
Hmm. There must be something that he sees in Bryce Mitchell that he thinks he can beat him because you step in on. I think he stepped in on 3 weeks or 4 weeks notice to take on Bryce. Now you're calling him out again. I imagine he sees something that
Uh
he can
huh.
take advantage of. I bet, but yeah, he's an interesting fighter, and I'm interested to see where he goes. Last fight on the main card: Cron Gracie, Charles Jourdain. This was also an interesting performance. We had Cron Gracie hopped out of a time machine from 1995, tried to play jiu-jitsu off his back for the whole fight, and didn't work for him. He does have a chin though, but give me your thoughts on this performance from
uh,
from Gracie.
yeah, I didn't. When Gracie fought, shoot, no, I'm blanking on the name.
Cub Swanson.
Cub Swanson. I like Cub Swanson too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Cub Swanson was also a little younger because that fight happened however long ago, like years.
Yeah, I think that was in 2019.
Okay, because so that was what I think. Yeah, so around 2019, 2018 was when I was getting in the UFC, like heavily. So I remember that fight because I always remember the stories of my uncle would tell me about like Royce Gracie and how crazy that was back then. So I saw he was a Gracie and I was like, okay, well, like let me watch. I'm interested. And then Cub Swanson kind of like got him pretty good a little bit. It was a little more competitive, but he got him, and it was like you could tell like Gracie really, yeah, only didn't really have stand up like that. So coming to this fight, I was like, I like Charles Jourdain. I think he's a fun fighter, and also I think he's skilled.
Mm-hmm.
But I was hearing like, so I wasn't really gonna trust Gracie, but I was hearing that like, oh, he got so like he got better in that however many
Yeah.
years. then I watched that and I'm like, get better at what? Like, what did you work on?
Yeah.
Um, so I think that everyone, yeah, everyone knows already, like all the other fighters. I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect the man. I thought Jourdain handled it very well. It was still super respectable, but I mean, you can't win fights against good fighters nowadays doing that. Like, or coming in with that game plan, or coming in with that limited skill set. So
Yeah.
I thought, I mean, it looked like at least he never gave up. He was still in there, trying to do some things, but you could tell it was someone that had the upper hand by a wide margin.
Yeah, and I don't even think he attempted to get better at certain skills. Like at this point, it's like if you want to be good at jujitsu, you also need to be good at wrestling enough to get it to the ground. Play
Uh-huh.
play jujitsu all day long, but play it from the top and not the bottom. It's like instead of jumping guard, attempt takedowns, get on top and try an advanced position. You're not only are you more likely to get a sub, but you can actually win a decision that way too. If you play jiu-jitsu off the bottom for 3 rounds, you automatically lose the decision. It's
Hmm.
like without a doubt. So I mean, I do feel bad for Kron to the extent where like he probably feels like he's trying to live up to this legacy of being a Gracie, and he probably feels like
Yeah.
he has to fight like one, but it is not the best. It's not the best way to get wins in 2023.
Uh-huh.
And if he doesn't make improvements, he probably isn't getting any wins anytime soon. At least when he's on the feet, he needs to be more active. Like at least throw shots. There was times where he was just covering up, and Charles Jourdain was just taking. All right, here I'll throw a nice little 4-piece combo. You
Uh-huh.
know, 2 shots to the head, two to the body. He beat him up bad, but yeah, I mean, wasn't really competitive, and we learned that 4 years didn't really mean much for Mr.
Yeah.
Gracie.
And I was going to say too, kind of like you just said, um, sure, some people never get the hands where they need to be or the striking, but like you were saying, if you're this good at jujitsu and you want to focus, you at least just got to work on the grappling. Though you got to work on the part of the game that at least can get you to the like jujitsu,
Hmm.
like. And that's just that's the other thing that makes me mad is like because it's fine if the striking's not there, but you got to work on that a little bit to try to like Brian Ortega needs to work on his grappling and wrestling more so he can use his striking, or I mean, so he can use his jujitsu. But at least he can still find submission sometimes with a takedown or two, or maybe based off his striking, get in the clinch. But like, it's one where like he needs to work on that as well. But at least he can still find the avenue. Like I just don't see, like you're saying, if you keep pulling, jumping guard and on your back, you're not really giving yourself a chance to even use your jujitsu properly.
Yeah, and it's like another good example is Mackenzie Dern has absolutely no takedown offense, but she's lethal from the bottom or from the ground. And Mackenzie kind of gets away with it a little bit more just because in women's MMA
It's
there's
women's MMA.
you get
Yeah.
you have more opportunity to win fights like that. And she almost beat Yan Chanan like that. Like she went like 2 for 11 on takedowns or something like that, and one of the 2 takedowns she got almost resulted in a finish with an
Hmm.
armbar. So yeah. One thing that I thought was interesting was that Diego Lopez was better off his back chasing submissions than Kron Gracie.
Yeah.
From the time when he was on his back, he didn't really progress with anything meaningful. I mean, Jourdain was pretty reserved from the top, which he should be, but I mean, he wasn't. There's things you can do from bottom to create some openings, almost make him work, but it's like absolutely. Once he got on bottom, I wasn't impressed from his jiu-jitsu off bottom either. I was never.
Yeah.
There was never a moment where I was like, "Oh, he's almost got a submission." I didn't even run into that moment once. I
Uh-huh.
felt like.
I would
Um,
agree.
and yeah, and for Charles Jourdain, he called out Edson Barbosa after the fight. I think he put that out on Twitter. I was kind of hoping Barbosa would get someone ranked a little bit higher, but Edson Barbosa versus Charles Jourdain is about as fun of a fight that you can make. So I kind of hope they book
Yeah.
that.
Um, I think so too. I mean, I know it's getting a little old too, but I'm perfectly fine with that fight. I think Jourdain's if he wants to ask for a fight like that, I think he's deserved it a little bit because I think he's entertained probably in his last four or five fights
Mhm.
from if I can remember all of them correctly. But
Even
yeah,
when he's
so
lost, they've been entertaining.
that's ours. Yeah, so I mean, I'm fine with that.
Hmm. Um, so that wraps up UFC 288. We won't get too thick into the prelims, just because some of the prelim fights are worth talking about, some of them aren't. So there's no reason for us to run through all of them to kind of get through the muck that's in the prelims. But we still got time for some NBA playoff talk, and we had two games last night. We'll start with the Nuggets and Suns game because I think that one is. I don't want to say. I think it's the more interesting game to talk about. I know the other one was close, but
Uh-huh.
Nuggets and Suns ended up being a really really good game here. And man, did KD and Devin Booker look good? I mean, when you let when those two guys are shooting like that, it is a very very tough to beat them. But just give me your thoughts on what you thought of this game.
Of this game, I thought. Well, I was gonna say at first, they went down 0-2, and it wasn't looking good for the Suns. No Chris Paul, but when they get back home, all you got to do is win two, and it evens the series, all that. And that's now. I think last game, D Book had 45, KD had 39, and then they both turned in 36-point performances. So I mean, it's clear there's I mean, I guess my thing is how many games can KD and D Book win by just outscoring by themselves? Because
Yeah.
I did think while Landry Shamet finally they got some help off the bench. Landry Shamet had 19 and
And they needed that bad. They
uh
needed that 19 from Shamit bad.
6 for 9, or I'm sorry, oh no, 6 for 9, 5 for 8 it says. Um, but 6 for 9 on field goals. So yeah, he went 5 for 8 from three. That's what I'm saying. I thought that was a real key. Was the Denver bench finally looked bad again, like it should, like kind of how they played for the regular season, and the Suns bench I thought finally played pretty good, at least if it was just one person. But I think as a whole they played pretty good, and so at that point I don't think it was just necessarily KD and D Book having to outbattle the starting five of the Nuggets. I thought they got the bench help, and then I think that's a huge reason for the win.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And kind of off the back of that, like it, Devin Booker's performance was crazy. He was hitting shots he had no business hitting. So credit to him. But if that Suns team could get more out of DeAndre Ayton, they would be in such a better spot where they like DeAndre Ayton has talent, but it's like, can we please see a little bit more out of DeAndre Ayton? I know he's got a tough matchup going against Jokic. I know it's not easy, but at least make Jokic work on the defensive end
Uh-huh.
of the floor. Like Jokic
Exactly.
finished with what 53, 11 assists, only had 4 boards, but I mean, you got to make Jokic work defensively. If he wants to go
Hmm.
ahead and score 53 offensively, make him work on the defensive end of the floor. Maybe even get him in foul trouble. Obviously, don't
Uh-huh.
count on that, but if you can, it's better. It's a much better spot than otherwise. And then on the Nuggets, like Michael Porter Jr. needs to play a lot better if they want to win. I thought he was going to be an X factor in this series, someone that could get hot. And
Hmm.
I don't want to say play a Landry Shamet role because he isn't a bench player and he's a bona fide starter on that team. But like someone outside of your top two big names to step up, I thought that needed to be Porter for them. But he just hasn't shot the ball well enough this far into the series.
Yeah, I think. Well, like you were saying too, and some might say, because I think the other key, obviously, besides the bench, is you don't have Chris Paul. Hopefully, you get him back, and he can play better too, because Chris Paul wasn't playing the best. But yeah, Aiton, number one overall pick. Supposed to be a kind of a star for where he was drafted at, and like he's already played in the finals, but he just doesn't look like one whenever he's on the floor, kind of, and. So you need better play from Aiton, obviously, and like you said, at least make Joker work. Well, if you're making Joker work on the defensive end, he might not be able to drop 53 on the offensive end, or like you said, foul trouble, but also getting him tired a little bit. Like, um, I mean, I think Joker's phenomenal, and he truly can get what he wants. But you
Mm.
do at the end of the day, you got to make it life a little harder for him, um, especially in a game where you see the Nuggets were kind of struggling shooting the ball. Now imagine you start causing problems for Joker a little bit, then that's when you can build a run right
Hmm.
there and go on a good run. But I think overall, real quick too, I think I mean Joker's still playing great. Jamal Murray had 28 too. It's crazy to think that a 53 and 28, is a loss. But I
Yeah.
guess when you got a 36 and a 36, so. But I was gonna also say I did think shoot, I forgot it. But yeah, I think they just didn't shoot, the Nuggets didn't shoot good. But do you think how are you feeling? I guess a little bit going back to Nuggets going back home, Game 5.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think this series will I think this series is going to go 7 probably.
Okay.
So I think we're probably going to see the next two split, right? I assume it's going to be Nuggets game 5, Suns game 6 obviously. Um but yeah, I think the Nuggets are going to be able to get it done at home. But that said, the Suns have been very hot. I'm really interested to see about is if the Suns get Chris Paul back, how do they work him back
Hmm.
into this offense? Because I don't remember what day it was. I was on last week. I don't remember if it was the Monday show or the Friday show. One of the things I talked about was how the Suns were playing too much ISO ball. And they're playing too much ISO ball and they weren't getting good looks at the end of it. Now, the last two games, they moved away from that heavily. They did a lot better moving the ball. They did a lot better finding open shots. Um, so I think that offense is starting to look a lot better without Chris Paul. Um, well, they've kind of adjusted to not having Chris Paul is
Uh-huh.
a better way to phrase that. They've adjusted to not having Chris Paul. So then, how do you then adjust back to having Chris Paul? So that's one of the things that I'm interested in that I think could um, end up being the deciding factor of the series.
And I wonder because I don't think this would happen, but I would be curious to see how it played out too. Is I mean, we'll see how the next game goes because they could very well lose and then 2-0 without Chris Paul starts looking a lot worse when it turns into 2-1.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're winning the battle for the last two games among the starters a little bit, but where they really did it was like I was checking the plus minus of the bench was +8, +16, +15, +9. And that is wild to have your bench that high. So I was wondering if maybe if I was just curious, thought if Chris Paul came off the bench too and maybe played with those reserves, with those role players against the lack of depth and the of the Nuggets bench. If you can get KD and Booker still hot to still keep scoring and keeping them in that, if you give those other role players Chris Paul to come off the bench with, I wonder how that would play out too. But
I like that. I think that's an interesting idea that's at least worth trying because if those bench players are playing well, Chris Paul's the ultimate playmaker where he can get them open shots.
uh-huh.
Um, he can run the offense and he can do those things while Katie and Booker are not on the floor. So I think that's a smart plan of action that I think could I like that idea. I like that idea.
Especially you got to work him back into. You're probably going to be on a minutes restriction. I imagine he's not playing too much. So
Yeah, I'm with that. I like that idea. And then the other game, Sixers and Celtics, and let me just say, I did not think this series was going to be this close. I thought this was going to be a heavy Celtics series. Um, Even like Embiid is obviously not fully healthy either. Didn't play the first game,
mm.
but I thought the Celtics were going to walk away with this series. But that has been the complete opposite. We're staring at 2-2, and I mean, 76ers have really, really performed well. Harden has looked good. Embiid has played through his injuries, has still produced. So, I mean, credit to the Sixers, but they're looking good. What are you thinking?
Yeah, like I think I'd agree with you, especially seeing the Sixers past playoffs. They always seem to underperform and lose when they shouldn't. And then got to go up against Team Boston that's been stellar all year. Was like the pick before the season started, and then the pick when the season's ending. It just looks great, but I don't know. That I guess it's because it's kind of like Harden without Embiid. I think dropped 45 that first game, got the win. didn't play the best the next two games, bounces right back with with another insane 42-point performance. So it just seems like, I mean, I don't want to say if he plays, good, then they win, but like, because that's not even playing good. 45 and 42
Yeah.
is playing otherworldly. But I don't know. It also seems like the Celtics just can't win the close game right now too. They can't close it out when it is a close game.
Hmm.
Um, but oh my God, Jason Tatum had 18 rebounds. I was just looking at that. I just don't think I think Jason Tatum needs to score a little bit better. I think is one of the issues. Um, but it's back and forth, back and forth. I don't know. It's a fun series. This is what the Sixers should be playing like when you have
Yeah.
Joel Embiid and James Harden in the playoffs. So it's finally we're getting to see a little bit the series we've been missing for a couple years when they underperform.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And to your point about Tatum, it's like they put the ball in his hands there at the end of OT, and the shot didn't they he didn't get a shot off, right? He had to pass it off over to, I think it was Smart. I think they passed it over
It
to
was smart,
Smart.
and he hit it
Yeah,
too. But
he hit it. Yeah, couldn't get it off in time. Yeah, I thought he got it off in time watching it live, and I
uh
was
huh,
yeah, but yeah, obviously didn't get it off in time. So like I think I agree with you. It's like mm, we've talked about all these games where Jokic 53, Harden, Embiid, Murray have all played very, very well. Murray has been a little bit spottier than the others, but
hmm
when you see Booker, KD, any of the elite superstars in the playoffs this year, Curry had an amazing. Not to sorry to bring it back up, but Curry had an
yeah,
amazing series against Sacramento. I started saying that before I remembered that you were a Sacramento guy, so that's my bad. That's my bad. But Tatum has not had that game yet in this series that has really blown you away, and I think that
yeah,
is, I not to say he has to do that, but when you are a top five player in the league, you should get one of them at least that can
uh
kind
huh.
of win you a game. Like if he would have had that game, uh, like in game four, they win that game, but he just had his usual productive 25.
And that's what makes you think too. Like I lean towards the Celtics a little bit because you're still waiting on it. You'd think it's going to happen in one of the next three games if it goes to however far. But then again, I don't know. It might not. It might just never happen. So
Hmm.
I think
Shout out Matt
what's
for
good.
hopping in.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still obviously going to stick with the Celtics. I just think with if one of the stars play bad, the overall roster and everything can pick them up. Compared to it seems like their two wins are when James Harden drops over 40. So I think it's a lot easier. It's just a better team also
Hmm.
in defensively and everything. So um, I'm still going Celtics, but I mean like I guess both the games were just covered 2-2 series, both super interesting, competitive.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree. I think the Celtics, I agree that they're the more well-rounded team, better defensive team, and don't need the massive game to win. So
Hmm.
I do agree with you. And I think that is probably, um, I think it probably will be their series. That said, I thought it would be their series a lot easier. So
Yeah,
I maybe I'm counting out the 76ers more than I should be. So.
true.
Um, we still got a couple minutes here, so should we run through the games tonight? We got two games tonight. Knicks and Heat is the first one. Warriors Lakers the second, and both those series 2-1. We can start with the Knicks and Heat here, but and Heat. This. I don't want to say it's a must-win game for the Heat, but they're down 2-1. Never want to fall back to 3-1. So. What are your thoughts entering game four here for the Heat and Knicks?
Um, I mean, I definitely think it's been a good series so far. I think I didn't really get to talk about it, I don't think, but obviously didn't expect the Heat to be even in this round of the playoffs. But I mean, I like it. I think it's obviously a super important game. You got to see what I mean. You have playoff Himmy in full effect right now, so I mean anything could happen. I also think I always forget. Is it Caleb Martin? Yeah, Caleb
Yeah.
Barnes. I think he's been playing pretty good. Not the best last game, so obviously it's kind of just like how good Jimmy can be and where is he going to get the help from a little bit is what it seems like.
Hmm.
I mean, they won last game and they shot 21% from three, so maybe it doesn't matter because I mean the Knicks can go ice cold at any time, and it's hard to win a game. Obviously, if you shoot bad, it's hard to win a game. But with the Knicks, the way they shoot bad when they really shoot bad, it's tragic. So I think, and then is this one in Miami, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Miami.
I
So
mean, yeah, that's gonna be tough. I guess would it be? I would probably take. I mean, I like the Heat. I like Jimmy. I think Bam played really well last game, 17 and 12. But as like we kind of just witnessed, we just watched two other series get tied up 2-2.
hmm
So maybe we see just another one, another competitive series go into 2-2.
yeah, and I like the point you made about who's going to help Jimmy. I think that has been the story of this Heat team. I mean, aside from the games where Jimmy goes ballistic and
Mm-hmm.
has 55, um, it's who's helping Jimmy has been the story. Whether it's looking at the last game, Struess had 19. Lowry has had a really a much better playoff than I was expecting. Um, yeah, yeah, that's. I mean, if the Knicks don't shoot well, they're in a bad spot. But as far as the Heat go, um, the Heat absolutely have to help Jimmy, and so far they have done that um, enough to win series and keep them in games. And I think at home that only kind of heed towards the role player stepping up once again. So I think the Heat are able to tie it up here 2-2. Um, and like Matt said, the Knicks have to shoot better. Absolutely have to shoot better, no matter who it is. Absolutely have to shoot better. So if not able to do that, I think we get another Heat win. So I'll take the Heat here in Game 4.
I would say also, and as like you said, shooting better. The game they won, they shot 40% from three, and so it shows you. I think Randall 3 for 9 is not the best, but Brunson 6 for 10, RJ Barrett 5 for 9. I mean, the Knicks aren't getting much help from their bench, because and even quickly that game only had 6 points. So I mean, obviously you got your three or their three stars, not maybe stars per se, but they're three good people. I think the Knicks are a type of team you're gonna have to have maybe 2 out of 3, but I'd say more than likely you're gonna have three good games from all three people to truly be competitive and start winning playoff series past the first round. But um, I think another thing is if they control the boards because they did that in game two a lot. So I think if they can control the boards, that will also help. But um, do I want to pick? I'll take the Heat. I don't know. I don't mind seeing 2-2, but yeah, I'll take the Heat.
Hmm. And like Matt said, Jimmy has not had that game in this series yet where he absolutely goes off, and the other guys have been playing really well, and has helped them. Oh, I did not know quickly might be out. That would really hurt them.
Uh-huh.
All right, Heat. I'll go Heat Game 4. Heat Game 4. Calling it here.
What a
Um,
crazy to think if the Heat make the um, Eastern Conference too.
Man, that'd be great. And then the last game for tonight is last game for tonight. Warriors and Lakers. Um, Lakers have a really nice 2-1 series lead here. Warriors are going to have to pick one up on the road here. Um, Warriors have to pick one up on the road. And man, this Lakers team has played well this series. They did not play that great game two, but game 1 and 3, they had really nice performances. AD has played well in those games. He did not play well in the game that they lost. And I think that is probably the trend that gets on this series. If AD plays well, I think they have a very, very good shot at winning. If AD does not play well, they do not. I don't want to boil it down to being that simple, but I think it does come down to that where, hey, you can't have LeBron you can't depend on LeBron to go get you 35. So you need AD to step up. And on the defensive end of the floor, he needs to step up and really be a presence in that paint. Um, because the one thing that gets talked a lot about with Golden State is obviously their 3-point shooting. But
Hmm.
when you can make them one dimensional, when you can make them only a 3-point shooting team, they're not as successful. So I think if AD can be a presence in the paint and shoulder some of the offensive load, I think the Lakers have a really good chance to win this series. Um, but yeah, what are your thoughts here heading into Game
I
4?
mean, I've been saying it for it's 80, it's up to 80. So like you're saying, not to make it that simple, but I meant it is honestly, that's a huge part of it though. And I've said this too, but when the Lakers won the ring in the bubble, AD was the best player on the court for the first 3 rounds of the playoffs. Any team he played. So when he is playing like a top tier self, it shows you the Lakers can make a run. Now, I think it's also good because LeBron was horrible in the first round. Besides maybe closing out a game or two down the stretch, but he's played a lot better. So I think he's kind of it's scary because I think he's maybe getting it going a little bit more the deeper the playoffs go. But like you were saying, the 3 pointers, the last game blowout. Lakers shoot 48 from three, and the Warriors were only shot 29. Well, the game before, the Warriors were shooting 50% from three, and the Lakers were shooting I think like around 29 again. So it seems like if obviously if one of the teams is hitting 50% of the threes, that's gonna be a tough out, and you especially don't want that team to be the Warriors because of how much they shoot and how much their offense can flow once they start getting into it. So I think I don't know. They're just also not good on the road, but I don't know if the Warriors have like two bad games in them necessarily like that, and I don't know if the Lakers have two good games in them quite that good necessarily. So I might expect it to even out, but I will say this could definitely be a game where LeBron goes crazy and kind of starts to close out the series or really puts the dagger in them. So I'd be interested, but I think I'll take the 3-point shooting. I think I'll say it'll pick back up again. Maybe have a pretty big Curry game. I don't know if he's necessarily has how what's the highest he's had in the series.
I don't know off the top of my head here, but I can look. He had 23 in game 3. I want to say he had a good game. No, he had a really good game too, but he not shooting wise. See, that's the game he had the ton of assists and they
Okay.
were doubling him and he was passing it off and Clay shot well. So I don't think he's had a really great offensive
Okay.
performance yet.
So then, kind of like we were saying earlier, for that, it's you got to have a Jimmy Butler game or a Jason Tatum game soon. I'll take maybe I'll say the series gets evened up, even though they're on the road, because I think the Warriors will play better as a whole. Maybe hit a little bit more threes. I don't know if I don't. I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb here and say Lakers don't shoot 48% from three again.
Hmm.
Um, Anthony Davis might still have a good game. I am worried about LeBron having a LeBron game, but I'm gonna go ahead and take the Warriors 3-point shooting and say that Curry maybe has a defining game again.
Yeah, and Matt agreed with that point about AD being crucial for the Lakers, and Vanderbilt has done a really solid job of stuff.
The length is that's the thing about the Kings. We don't have length to defend. We're having to defend them with Davion Mitchell 6'1". So I think it is it's super interesting to see how it's getting to him a little bit.
Hmm. And the other thing that I'll add in here about this series is, D'Angelo Russell had a great game in Game 3. Well, maybe great's a little bit of an overstatement, but he got hot early
Hmm.
and really helped them get a lead early, and that kind of helped them as well. Yeah, but I'm with you on the point you made about how I don't think the Warriors are going to go out there and lay an egg in such an important game. I think somebody on this team gets hot, whether it's Steph. I guess obviously I'd assume Steph is hot for a game 4. But I wouldn't put it past Klay Thompson or anyone else to have a great game either.
Maybe
And
Jordan
then
Poole because.
Maybe he gets hot, and sometimes he is not hot. Sometimes Jordan Poole is not hot, but shoots like he's hot, and the Warriors have problems. But maybe it will be Jordan Poole in LA. Who knows who will be sitting courtside to really get him going. Clay on the Matt train. I don't hate it at all.
I
Or
didn't Clay this.
Matt on the Clay train. I don't hate it at all.
I will say, I don't know. I've seen Jordan Poole recently has not performed in front of Zendaya, Adele, and Kim K. So I don't think he cares if there's baddies there, or if not, maybe we have different taste of beautiful women. But he is not performing in front of when it matters.
No, no, not when the real baddies show up. When the real baddies show up,
Exactly.
it presents problems. He needs the normal girls that are still
He
attractive.
he needs them IG models, stuff like that. He don't want real women up there.
Yeah. But I'm with you. I'll take the Warriors game 4. I think someone gets hot, and I think the Lakers come back down to earth a little bit from 3. Maybe AD doesn't play as well. Maybe some of those role players don't play as well. So we're on the same side of both these games, it sounds like. So
Yeah, and also I just would want a close game too. Would be kind of nice after 2 blowouts. I wouldn't mind a close one.
yep. We got blessed with shout out. That's a good one. That's a good one. But yeah, I agree. We got 2 great basketball games last night. I hope we get spoiled again with 2 more close ones tonight. That'd be really nice. So, all right, we were at an hour 15, and we got all the way through. Well, not all the way through. We got all the way through the UFC 288 main card, and all the way through last night's games and the upcoming games for tonight on the NBA playoffs. So a lot of good work today on the Daily Show. Tomorrow we will have 2 more Vendetta members sitting in these seats running the Daily Show, presumably talking about NBA playoffs and any other important sports topics. But, Anthony, it was great talking with you, and thank you to anyone who tuned in, and shout out to Matt for throwing in the chat again. I appreciate it. All right, that's it.